Well, I think one of the things that was very interesting about the BBC in the early days of the news website was its kind of innovative spirit. What happened, I was there from 1998 onwards, and at that point it was very much in its infancy, and it was kind of left alone a bit, actually, because we were literally in the attic, you know, we were kind of isolated from everyone else, and you know, the TV and radio people were sort of thinking, oh yeah, there's those geeks up there, who are they, and then what are they doing? But actually the isolation was a good thing, because it enabled us to innovate and to be nimble and to adapt to change, and to, you know, to develop things and, you know, try things. Sometimes they worked, sometimes you failed, you learned from that, you moved on. So I think that approach in itself was a very valuable one, so that's something I'd definitely like to try to bring to CBC.
I think hyperlocal sites in general are very different, even between us and Toronto Sun Spacing. We all cover different types of stories, and when you also look south of the border at some of the hyperlocal efforts that have come out there, most of what I've seen, except for like the Gothamist sort of network of sites, the content tends to focus on the same kind of stories that traditional local media tends to pursue, like crime and violence and weather or whatever, like all that stuff that people shake their heads and say, why do I watch the news? It's so depressing. So we don't focus on those sort of stories. I mean, we're specifically interested in, we are interested in news, but we're equally, if not more so, interested in culture. And you know, what we really try to do is not be beholden to this sort of PR-driven news cycle that we see a lot of the other local media players trapped in, I guess, for lack of a better word. Just so I know how many people I insulted. How many PR people are in the audience today?
Who will admit to being PR?
So,
yeah, over here.
You know, so we see stories like, I think it was last week, there was like the Mexican avocado people were handing out avocados at Union Station, and this got a lot of write-ups in the local media. And I thought to myself, yeah, you guys got the guacamole dip and the tortilla chips and stuff that they sent around to all the local, you know, this is why, you know, the PR people were sort of sending out these gift baskets. And this is the sort of stories they pursue because, you know, they sort of have these relationships with PR people and whatever. So not that we don't like PR people. When they send us stories that we think are interesting and worth pursuing, we'll absolutely pursue them. But we are absolutely not trying to make that even close to, you know, even 5% of what, you know, the bread and butter of our stories are. We do aim for original stuff, and the way we do that is because everyone that writes for the site are like you and me. We're people that live in the city, and we see things, and we talk to people, and we have stuff going on in our neighborhood, and we eat out, and we, you know, do all these things. We go to live music shows and stuff. So that whole approach where, you know, we're just focusing on stuff that you are experiencing and living through every day, I think allows us to separate ourselves from other local players. And did that answer your question, though?
I think it did.
Okay.
One of the most important things we want to be careful of is making sure that people don't think we're spamming the conversation, right? So there seems to be a different tolerance on Twitter for us to reach out to people that are complaining about Rogers than there would be, say, on Facebook if someone were complaining. You know, even in an open group, people don't really want to feel like a brand is there and listening to them and jumping in, where on Twitter people have kind of become used to that and they're generally okay with it. You know, we want to be transparent, so we're always, when we're engaging, we're always trying to be clear about who we are, that we're with Rogers. We want to be there to help people, and we want to try and do it in a way that we're not kind of talking in key messages or in corporate speak. When we do, we get called out for it. You know, there are certain times when there are legal considerations, so we have to be careful in the way that we say what we say. People see through that, and there's like little tolerance for that online. So you know, it's walking a fine line. We want to be there to be, to some extent, customer ambassadors, right? We're the people listening to customers online and bringing that back to people within the organization. On the other hand, we're also there to, you know, to defend Rogers and to explain our policies. So there's a very fine line between those 2 points, and we're still learning. Like really, you know, the social media space is so new that like I've been doing it for 2 years and I'm supposed to be an expert. Like there are no experts, right? So everybody's still learning. We're still trying to figure it out. So we're experimenting and kind of learning as we go along.
And are you able to respond to every query that's posed to you, or is it just so mountainous sometimes that you just have to prioritize maybe queries that make sense or that you can handle?
So right now we're responding to every query that's directed to us on Twitter. You know, we track every conversation about Rogers Online. There's 400 to 500 of them a day in general. You know, a smaller portion of that are directed to us. We estimate that we're responding to about engaging in about 5% of the overall conversations about Rogers Online. You know, there's other brands in the States like Dell, Comcast. I think Dell's probably the best example. They respond to a much larger percentage of conversations, so not just things directed to them. As we grow our team, we're going to be doing more of that. Again, you know, being sensitive to where is the right place and how we do it. Yeah, we're going to keep growing and doing more.